One of the biggest mistakes I see people make when they're first getting into video production, but it can also last much later as well, is that they tend to blame the gear quite a bit for quality issues or issues that they could have solved themselves. And I think it's an easy scapegoat just to blame the gear, blame the camera, blame the lights, blame these things that are separate from the individual. But usually at the end of the day, it is on the individual. Oftentimes you'll see shaky camera work and it's blamed on a bad tripod or not having the right rig. Well, if that's the situation you're in and your tripod is that bad, then don't decide to do a moving panning shot or a tilting shot or whatever the shot might be. You, as an individual, have to make the best choice for the gear that you have, and you can't choose to do something that ultimately ends up looking bad and then just blame it on the gear when you're the one that made that choice. This is often really apparent with cameras. People like to blame the camera when their color was bad or when their lighting was bad, as if they had a more expensive camera, somehow all that other stuff would have just been perfect. But you can shoot on a Red, you can shoot on an Arri and still have bad lighting and still have bad color. Yes, those cameras do look a little bit nicer in the realm of dynamic range and resolution compared to some other cameras, but that doesn't mean a cheaper camera is inferior for those other quality aspects. It's not like you're going to buy a really expensive camera and all of a sudden become a master cinematographer. It's just not going to happen. I also see people blame their audio equipment when their audio doesn't sound its best because there's some wind noise or the frequencies aren't quite right or there's some rustling from a microphone. And while there are some pieces of gear that you can buy that are, a little bit more expensive, a little bit higher quality, that will offset some of those problems, it's not going to eliminate it entirely. And a lot of those problems could have been solved if better decisions had been made. Film inside if your microphone can't cut out wind noise. Change the placement of the microphone if you're getting a little bit of a rustle. Or do some audio work in post-production to clean up the noise or clean up the frequencies. Yes, bigger budget productions are likely going to have better quality because they can afford the more expensive stuff that makes it really easy to get good quality results. But that still takes talent, it takes skill, it takes problem solving, and that doesn't mean that the cheap pieces of gear are going to produce absolute garbage. You can actually make some really nice looking stuff with really affordable gear. You just have to be a little bit more cautious with the use of it and knowing what situations are good and what situations are bad. And you also have to train yourself to use these pieces of gear with your skill set. And you have to understand the limitations of the cheaper gear so you're not trying to push it beyond its capability. And this might also lead to scenarios where you need to fix a shortcoming or a problem of the gear, but that's okay. Oftentimes there is a simple, easy fix for things. I've talked about this on my channel before, but certain lights have certain casts of color, so you can get gel to offset it. You don't have to just blame the light and say, oh, the light is garbage, I can't use it because it has this green cast. No, figure out a way to fix the problem. Yes, some tripods are a little bit stiffer and harder to use than others, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. Practice with it, see what's doable, see what's not, and then know the limitations of the piece of gear so you can stay within those bounds. That way you can still make really nice, aesthetically pleasing footage, and you don't have to blame the gear for the shortcomings of the project. Another really common example of this is with gimbals or Steadicam, GlideCam type systems. These are systems that take a lot of practice and experience to use properly, and if you just buy it off the shelf thinking that you're going to be professional right away, you're going to be let down. And I see a lot of people blame the equipment, say that it's not easy to use, it's not easy to balance, it's too difficult to figure out. And they use that to blame for the shaky quality of the shots or why the footage looks the way it does, when you see other people using the exact same gear or even cheaper gear making better results. You're never going to have an infinite budget, so you have to understand how to work within the budget you have to make the best looking video that you can. Sometimes you will be limited, but when you know those limitations and you understand them, you can work around them or come up with solutions to fix those problems. So at the end of the day, when someone's watching the final product, they're not even aware of what the initial budget actually was. All they see is a great video that looks good, that sounds good, that's well lit, it has good color, and they're not going to notice that you used a cheaper camera or you didn't have the perfect tripod. All they're going to see is a great video.